Javier Milei, he is the new president of Argentina, has shown up to the to Davos, the World Economic Forum, but he says he's there really to spread freedom. He says, "Long live freedom, damn it," and says that the WEF is contaminated with 2030 socialist agenda. So he's there to spread freedom and mostly freedom is what he claims. Let's go ahead and watch this. This is why he was asked why he's at the World Economic Forum. We kind of did this funny thing with this, with AI. There's this new AI program that allows you, called HeyGen, that allows you to translate into the speaker's voice in English. So we kind of tried this, and it's a little weird, but this is not. He's actually speaking in Spanish, but we translated it using this cool AI function. So watch this.
Plant the ideas of freedom in a forum that is contaminated with the Socialist Agenda 2030 and that will only bring misery to the world.
Freedom is key to prosperity.
Continue talking and making it clear about the conviction we have in this change of direction that the new government has marked.
So there he is saying that he is there because he says that he's there to combat the 2030 socialist agenda that's only going to be bringing misery to the world. Here's another clip of him. This was also translated. It's a bit better. He's speaking English in this clip, but again, he wasn't really. In real life, he was speaking Spanish. But rather than having, kind of an awkward translator dubbing over this, the AI allows it to be dubbed over in Javier Milei's actual voice. So here he is saying that he doesn't want to surrender to the advance of the state. He's talking more about freedom during his speech at the World Economic Forum. Here's a little clip from it. Here you go.
Do not yield to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story, and know that from today, you have Argentina as an unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long life freedom, damn it.
There he is saying that, he's all about freedom, damn it, long live freedom, damn it. So what's interesting about Javier Milei is that a lot of people are suspicious of him. So he's the libertarian, the only libertarian who's ever won an election. So everybody's really excited. He wants to eradicate all of these government different programs in Argentina. There was a video of him going viral of him slashing all of the different government agencies, saying he's getting rid of all of them when he's president. So he really wants to kind of take the country into a fully libertarian agenda. Now, look, I'm really libertarian when it comes to social stuff. When it comes to, I think we don't want government interfering at all in our private lives. Really big on that. But when it comes to eradicating everything that the government, all of these services and programs and agencies that the government provide, and then you put it into the hands of corporatists, in the hands of people like Bill Gates, I don't know if to me, that's not the best idea in the world. I know a lot of people argue with this. The libertarian wing will always argue and say, no, the private sector can handle it better. Staunch libertarians want to go full on and eradicate every single public agency, including fire departments and police departments, meaning you would be on your own for hiring a fire department. You'd be on your own. It would be very much like our current medical system, which is not a success. I know that Obamacare hasn't been a great success either, but certainly what wasn't a success at all was a third of Americans not having any ability to get any health insurance at all because the big corporations didn't want to insure them. They were the people that had previous bouts of cancer or other sort of high-risk ailments. And so when you put everything in the hands of these big corporations, what you end up with is what we saw during the pandemic with Bill Gates. Was Bill Gates and his massive amount of influence in the private sector and even in the public sector was able to go and basically get everybody on board with the vaccines during COVID. He was able to get everybody on board with his agenda. We saw these big corporations like Pfizer pushing for mandates and getting everybody on board with mandates, getting businesses to say you can't work here unless you have the vaccine. saying, or you can't enter into our building unless you've been vaccinated. So when you allow the private sector to end up being in charge of everything, you end up with that. There is a strong possibility that you end up with players like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and whoever kind of running everything. So so people are a little nervous that Javier Milei is actually advocating for taking the power away from the people. Not that the governments represent people, but certainly big corporations don't represent people. They don't care. They're there for the profit. They're there for the money. So when you take away if you take away the public, the governing from where the people are, the politicians who are supposed to be accountable to the public, and you move it to the private sector, you're actually marching in the globalist agenda. You're actually marching it in. You're not saving us from the globalist agenda. You have to remember, World Economic Forum, there are more billionaires and millionaires at that event than there are politicians and leaders. I mean, they outnumber them 10 to 1. World Economic Forum, Davos, is overrun with the billionaires and the millionaires. And in fact, Jamie Dimon, who's the head of Chase Bank, made a comment back in like 2016. He said, Davos is where billionaires tell millionaires how the middle class should live, or they tell them what the middle class thinks. Billionaires tell millionaires what the middle class is thinking. I mean, it's a joke, but so these billionaires are looking for, how are they going to increase their power? How are they going to increase their revenue? The millionaires are thinking the same thing. And so they're all in on a guy like Javier Milei, who says, you know what, let me hand you the power, billionaires and millionaires. Let's take it away from these government leaders, who many of them you've bought off, but you have to buy them off. I mean, there is that, right? In the current system, the millionaires and the billionaires have to buy off the politicians. Well, if the politicians don't exist, if the agencies aren't in the hands of the politicians and they're just in the hands of the billionaires and the millionaires, they don't have to pay anybody off. They're in control. They get what they want. So a lot of people are very skeptical that Javier Milei is actually marching in faster the globalist agenda by bringing with him all of these people who look at him as this freedom fighter. Because libertarians have been, and as Klaus Schwab has even warned against at the beginning of this Davos summit, saying that it's the libertarians who are causing this revolution against their agenda. And Klaus Schwab is saying, oh my gosh, these libertarians are getting in the way of what we're trying to do here. Now we're having to fight this revolution against us, against our system that we're trying to put in place. And so Javier Milei represents this person who's coming forward to kind of snub the WEF and say, long live freedom, damn it, saying that he wants these libertarian principles. But really, when it comes to, and that's a good thing when you're talking about, we don't want CBDCs, we don't want them to control us with 15-minute cities and mandates and digital passports and IDs and all of these various things that they want to do in order to control us. But when it comes to then economics, and Javier Milei is standing there in front of a group of 1,000 millionaires and billionaires at Davos saying, let's get rid of government and let's just hand you the power, they are also cheering him on. They're not against him, they're for him. They love these ideas. They think, great, I don't have to bribe off the politicians anymore. Woo! I no longer have to go through the middleman. I can just go straight to doing things the way that I want, gaining the control inside of society. And that is, so Javier Milei, he's kind of an interesting character, one to kind of continue to watch. He's a guy that his very first item of business when he finally got elected was to pledge allegiance to Israel, and said that he wants to go to Israel for his first foreign policy trip. That was the very first thing he did. So, he comes across, and this is kind of the theme. We're going to go through a bit more of what's gone on at Davos and the WEF. But what I noticed about this year, starkly different from previous years, is that the powers that be are on to us. They know that there's this giant push against their agenda. So what they're doing is they're using sweet language in order to get us to think that they understand, they get it, and they're kind of on our side. And that has been the theme of this year, with a variety of things that have been said throughout the WEF And we'll continue to cover the things that are being said this week and also next week when it's over. It ends tomorrow, and then we'll kind of be able to kind of do a recap on this. But I did receive this email. This came in, which you can email me, kim@kimiverson.com, but this came in from somebody who goes by the DB. It says, you've probably heard the speech at Davos by the newly elected Argentinian leader, Javier Milei. Sounded great, right? Well, I emailed you back when he was elected and noticing he was associated with the WEF, and that he may be a wolf in disguise promoting corporatism, which is the natural cousin to fascism. Apparently, David Icke picked up on this as well, and Jeffrey Jackson on the Jackson Report on the Highwire reported that possibility. Anyway, something to be aware of. I'm hoping I can move to Argentina, but need proof of concept first. Yeah. So people are skeptical. People are skeptical of Javier Milei. I think it's still too early to tell with him. I do think, though, that we're seeing a ramped up rhetoric at the WEF amongst the elites where they seem to get it. They seem to understand that people are not wanting to be controlled, and they're kind of using the language. And in reality, they're just pivoting how they go about, they're coming up with new and creative ways. They say, okay, people don't like CBDCs, so we've got this new thing. And it's the same thing, but you don't know it's the same thing because they're not going to call it CBDCs. It's that type of trickery that is now happening because they're onto the fact that we're not down with their globalist agenda.